Hello, Brian.
Well, hi there, Michael.
Top of Mind, Florida. Back with you again. Good to see you as always.
It's good to be here.
And also good to have. I've been trying to get her in the chair for a while. This is a busy lady. Senator Lori Berman, Democrat, Palm Beach County, longtime lawmaker, term limited. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Minority leader this year. So people are praising you. I don't know in a Republican-led legislature if we should praise you or come give you a hug. We'll talk about that. I hope you and your family had a good holiday and a good start to 2026.
Thank you. We had a wonderful holiday. It's been a great start. And like I say about being the leader, I don't know if I deserve condolences or congratulations. But I'm happy to be in that role.
We'll congratulate you. Take it away, Brian.
Well, what do you hope to accomplish in Tallahassee this coming session?
So as I have some personal goals and I have goals as a minority leader. Mm-hmm. As the minority leader, my goal is to put forth our platform, which is affordability. We have worked with the House, which is unusual. In past years, the House and Senate have not worked, the House Democratic Party have not been as much in conjunction, but because myself and the incoming and the leader of the Senate Democratic Minority Caucus, Fentress Driscoll, have a good relationship, we put forth our own agenda. So we have 3 bills on our agenda, and they're all affordability related. One is to have more affordable housing, and as part of that, we want to have a tax break for first-time home buyers. We've proposed that the break come from the actual documentary stamp taxes, that's where it come from, as opposed to property taxes, which I'm sure we'll get into a discussion about that issue.
She's clairvoyant, too, after all these years. Yeah.
The second bill that we've proposed is to have a Florida DOGE. We've seen that they've gone across the state and doging our county, and we've seen some real issues going on with what's going on with our county, where we haven't seen any documentation of claims of $300 million of excess. So what we proposed is the state should be doging itself. And we know that there are real problems in the state. We want the state to look into what happened with the Hope Florida money. We want the state to look into what happened with school vouchers. We've heard there's hundreds of millions of dollars of problems in duplicate payments with the voucher program. We want the state to look into purchases of land. We just purchased a piece of land under the conservation easement in the Panhandle that we paid something like 10 times what the people had paid for it 10 years before. So we want the state to do its own work, figure out where the problems are, and see if we can recover anything from these problem areas also.
And what if the Republicans simply say no to all of it?
They probably will, but I think it's important that we get the message out there that if you're going to doge counties, you should be doging yourself too, also.
You brought it up, so we will. And by the way, last week we had Republican Toby Overdorf, who you know well from Treasure Coast, House Representative in Tallahassee. Property taxes. Republicans are full steam ahead to make something happen there. Where do you all stand on the calls to roll back, in some cases, if some had their way, eliminate property taxes in Florida? Is going to be a big, big centerpiece of the fight this year.
It's a huge centerpiece of the fight. What I would say as the leader of the party, and everybody, we have people with all different viewpoints on it, but my position is this. I am not opposed to some kind of changes in the property tax law, but I think they have to be very, very targeted for specific groups. For instance, we have seniors who can't afford to live in their homes because the property tax have gone up. I would consider doing some kind of a break for seniors based on income levels also. We don't want to be giving millionaires and billionaires tax breaks, in my opinion. We need income here in this state. It is one of our major sources of income. And if we change, and the other major source is sales tax, which we know is extremely regressive. So I still think we should have property taxes here in the state. I would also like to give a break to first-time home buyers. I would consider that. We have a problem with people coming into the market. They're saying that people are used to enter the market at 30, now they're entering the market at 40 if they're entering the market at all. So those kinds of things I think are important, but I think that what we've seen, some of these wholesale get rid of all property taxes, is going to have a tremendously negative impact on our cities and counties. And we know that. And people and we should also point out that this has to be a ballot initiative. So the people of the state of Florida will be able to vote on this because it will be a ballot initiative. And obviously, people want to vote for lower taxes, but people also have to be educated and informed about what they're doing. Are we going to have trash pickup once a week or even once every other week? Are our roads going to be picked up? Are our parks going to be open even?
Libraries.
Or libraries? There are so much negative impact that could happen because of lowering or getting rid of taxes altogether.
Fire, police
So,
service.
well, what they have proposed is that they have proposed that police not be
Carve out.
affected. Right, a carve out for police and a carve out for schools. But then it also, how much impact will it really be if you're going to carve out both of those items? So I just think that when the time comes that it's on the ballot for the people, that we need to make sure everybody understands what they're voting on and what the ramifications could be.
Well, how much of this reduced property taxes is a genuine concern versus a political stunt in an election year?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is to make people think that we're doing great changes for them, and the status quo the way it is now. There's not, except for some classes, like I said, the seniors, the first time home buyers. Most people are okay and happy to pay property taxes because they want the benefits that come along with it. So there's a lot of political stunt involved in this action.
You mentioned seniors. I noted with Toby Oberdorf that over 20% of Florida's population is 65 and older, that the first baby boomers turn 80 this year, that baby boomer poverty will probably be a big thing over the next 10 to 20 years as they run out of the money in their 401ks, have increased medical expenses, et cetera. Are we paying enough attention to that in a state that has a huge senior population? Are we paying enough attention to that? Do we need to be planning for the next 5, 10, 15 years?
I don't think we're paying enough attention. I think that's a great point. I am worried about poverty for that group, and certainly Social Security, which is a source of income for so many of them. We don't know, there's always discussions in Washington what's going to happen with Social Security. I think we should be doing more planning, and the medical costs to the state are tremendous. And that's really where we're going to, and the waiting lists right now for services for the elderly are huge, and it's only going to balloon as time goes by. So I think we should be focusing a lot more on that issue, and it's something that the legislature is going to have to grapple with as time goes on.
And with Affordable Care Act health subsidies being rolled back, seniors and many others will be caught up in that as well. That many worry could be a tsunami this year in Florida as well for seniors and others.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, certainly for others, we've seen it's going to, they're saying it's tripling. A lot of the elderly are on Medicaid and Medicare right now. It's going to be a real problem. I mean, we've just, this is it. This is the time period where the rates are going to start going up. And I know that there's been so much, the sky is falling, but I think that we'll really start to see how those increases are going to impact people's lives. And really, people will have to choose between having health insurance and being able to afford food, or having health insurance and paying your rent, or even being able to get access to medicine. I think in the next few months we're going to start seeing some real ramifications from that.
What realistically can the legislature do about that?
Yeah, I mean, the Florida legislature, not as much, because it's Washington, obviously, and we need to put pressure on our legislators in Washington to continue those subsidies so that people can continue to get adequate health care. The Florida legislature, what ends up happening is we end up treating those people in our health care system, and they come to the hospitals when they're in an acute situation. They don't get preventative care because at this point, without insurance, they're not going for preventative care, and we end up paying more in the end because of the acute chronic situations that develop because they're not getting adequate health care.
What's top of mind on, we talked property taxes, what else? And your final go here, as your term limited, and we want to talk about that. It's been a long time for you, but what's on your agenda?
So I have three. So I said I had the agenda for the caucus, and then I have the agenda for myself. So for myself, I have 3 bills that I'm really working on. One, I have been a champion and an advocate in the past for victims of domestic violence. And I have another domestic violence bill this year that we brought last year. We got it passed in the Senate last year. It didn't pass in the House, hoping that this is the year that it goes all the way through. And Representative Peggy Gossett-Seidman is now my House sponsor this year, so I'm really positive about it for this year. And what it says is if you are in a domestic violence situation, we're going to try and set up a specific phone number that you can call, and that the law enforcement would have a geolocation on that number, and they could come immediately. We are working on the bill. Basically says, let's figure out what the process is going to be if we can actually do this. And the reason why we're doing this instead of 911 is because in these domestic violence situations, when somebody calls 911 and the perpetrator sees that that's what's happened, the violence escalates immediately, and people are in very, very life-threatening. Instead, you'd put this phone number in your phone. It looks like you can put it as your friend, your aunt, your uncle, and when you call, no one actually answers. There's no one there. It's just like a panic button kind of phone. And so if the person pulls the phone away and says, "Who are you calling?" you say, "Oh, I tried to call my aunt, but she didn't pick up." So hopefully that will be a really positive. I have two other bills that I'm really excited about. One in conjunction with the Palm Beach County School Board. They asked me to do this bill. And last year we passed a bill that band can substitute for your physical education credit. So the school board came to me and they said the kids with special needs, if they participate in Special Olympics, we'd like that to substitute for their physical education credit. So very excited about that bill. I think it should have. We're getting a hearing on it this coming week, so it's starting to move. It's a new idea, and sometimes it takes a while in the legislature, but I think this is an idea that everybody can get behind. And then the other bill I have is also a bill that everybody should get behind, a little more troubling. Kids who are in the foster system or for any reason who are removed from their homes, the only thing they have to put their supplies in is a trash bag. And it's so upsetting, and the message that it sends to these kids is horrible. So what we're trying to do is make sure that any kid who is removed from their home has some kind of a piece of luggage, a backpack, a duffel, a suitcase, anything, and that it's theirs and that it goes with them and they can have it so that they can have a little dignity when they're removed from their homes.
So Ron DeSantis is in his final year as governor. So when you look back, how would you describe his time as governor?
I think he's been a very strong governor, I will tell you that, and he has gotten through a lot of his priorities, but now he is a lame duck governor, and we saw last year that finally the legislature stood up a little bit and realized that we are a co-equal branch of government with him, and they did not push through all of his priorities last year, and that they also questioned some of the actions he's done, like in connection with Hope Florida. So I think we won't see as much of his priorities this year. I think this year it's going to be more what the legislature thinks are our priorities. For instance, our Senate president's priority is helping rural communities. I think, that's the first bill we're going to be hearing on the floor next week. So that's going to be the priorities that we kind of see through the legislature.
We'll talk about helping rural communities, which are usually largely ignored.
Absolutely. They have been so ignored here in the state of Florida, and people leave the rural communities because they don't have the support, they can't get jobs, they can't, thrive in these communities. So our Senate president is from a rural community. President Albritton, and he has made it a priority. And one of the big problems is also health care in rural communities. They're really health care deserts. But just now, the federal government gave the state of Florida, as part of one of their large bills, I think it's $200 million for health care for rural communities. So that's part of it, works in conjunction with what is called the Rural Renaissance Bill. That's the title of it. And they're going to be giving them more money for health care, to attract doctors, to be able to have health care facilities. It's hard to open a big hospital, obviously, in a rural area because there's just not enough volume of people. but they can open up more clinics, they can have more access to health care. They're looking at roads and infrastructure because for so long those communities have not had access to it. And actually, as part of that bill, one of it is a road here in our Glades, our Road 880, which really needs to be redone. And hopefully some of the money that comes through for this Rural Renaissance bill will include a road here for us in Palm Beach County.
Why does it take the Department of Transportation forever to complete a road project? Why are we so far behind? Now, some of this is on the legislature. Why are we so far behind as we watch roads get crowded and crowded and crowded and people hate driving anymore? Why are we so bad about transportation in Florida?
We are terrible. I absolutely
and
agree
we always
with
have
you.
been.
I know, and we have. I grew up here. I get it.
So did I.
I've lived through lots of. I was
You
here
should see me
before.
when I'm on the road with this
Right.
guy. I hear it all the time.
I was here before I-95 went through Palm Beach County.
Me
I
too.
remember
Yeah,
that too.
yeah. So we are just not proactive in that area, and it's really disappointing. I mean, part of it is our population continues to grow very quickly, and it's hard to predict that. I mean, they do have models. They do try and figure out where the population growth will be and where they can use it. And I think there's been a little bit of a reluctance about public transportation. So because we don't have great public transportation, we're not able to, figure out how to take advantage of moving people in a more efficient manner than a car. Because right now, a car is not the best manner to move people. I do think we heard that they're looking at an air taxi service from Palm Beach to Miami, and I think maybe that will end up changing the game at some point down the road.
Is Brightline a mistake?
I don't think so. I think Brightline is a great idea. I wish that we had more. I wish that Brightline went to Tallahassee. I wish that we had more high-speed rail through the state. I think people. I supported the high-speed rail ballot amendment, which was 1,000,000 years ago, and then it was repealed. I think Brightline just takes time.
Well, financially, they're in a lot of
Right.
They are, and that's why it
Will
takes
it take more time than the money they have?
Right. It might, but they, the one good thing they did was putting the real estate near the train stations, and I think that's helped them survive up until now.
We also asked Toby Overdorf about redistricting. There's been the fight all over the country to try and gain advantage for the congressional races this year. 20 of our 28 seats held by Republicans. Talk about that fight this year.
Yeah, so we've heard a lot of different things. The House has actually had a few meetings about redistricting. The Senate, we have not at all. And the governor has said he thinks it should happen after the legislative session concludes in March. Yeah.
Which you've predicted multiple times.
Right. So, I mean, we're not 100% sure how this could all work out. I do think there will be some discussion of it. I also think that right now there's actually no reason to do redistricting. We have the same census data. We don't have any different numbers that we had when we did the districts as they were drawn. So I really don't think there's any reason. I know that they are waiting and watching. There is a Supreme Court case from the U.S. Supreme Court coming down about minority-majority districts. And that will probably be the basis for any redistricting. Remember, we passed fair districts here in the state of Florida in the early 2010-11, I think it was. And what that says is you can't redraw a district based on a political party. So when Texas did their districts and they said, why are you doing it? And they said, because we want more Republican districts. You can't say that here in Florida. You cannot say that because of fair districts. But you can redraw a district if, based on this Supreme Court case, if they change the rules on minority-majority districts.
Immigration, how will that impact? We want to talk a little bit about the politics of this year. Immigration, the ongoing debate about deportations. I brought up to Toby Overdorf on the one hand. Many Venezuelans in Miami are saying, cheering that Maduro's been taken out of the country, but say, don't send us back to the country that you say such a mess that you plucked him right out of power there. Where will the immigration debate take us this year in this political season in Florida, if anywhere?
Right. It might not be really discussed in Florida. I think
Really?
this year. Well,
Immigration
we'll see.
won't be discussed?
Well,
Okay.
and
Interesting.
I mean, the reason why I'm saying it is because it's a federal issue. And we've seen what's going, and the Venezuelan issue with TPS, temporary protective status,
Yeah.
that's a federal issue, and the federal government repealed it and has to decide how they want to do it. We in the state of Florida have already required all counties and to comply with what's known as the 287G program, which says that our law enforcement officials will work with immigration officials. So I don't see where there would be any changes this year. It's already in effect. I think that the Republican Party is a little bit in a bind over this whole issue because a lot of them don't want to see the maitre d' from Beach A be deported and put into Alligator Alcatraz, but they also want to make sure that criminals are deported, and that's what we've always said as the Democratic Party. Fine, take all the criminals out, but the hardworking people who have been here for 20 years and who have put in a visa application or an application to be a citizen and then are being picked up at the courthouse as they're actually applying for their papers, those people should be allowed to stay here and work through the process. And you know, our construction industry, our agriculture industry, our service industry, we need workers here in the state of Florida who are willing to do those jobs. So I don't see anything, right now on the horizon on immigration in the state, but it's a real problem on the federal level.
How frustrating is it right now to be a Florida Democrat?
Actually, I'm feeling a little better. If you had asked me that question, if you had asked me that question 6 months ago, I would have told you it's extraordinarily frustrating, and I do feel like I have a headache from banging my head against the wall quite a bit. But in the last few months, where we've seen some of the election turnaround, the governor of New Jersey, the governor of Virginia, and the numbers in terms of the elections, where we're flipping. Even if we lose a seat, we were down 20 points, and now we're only down 5 points. So I do think that people are starting to wake up and see all these promises that were made by the president are not coming to fruition. We still have a war in Ukraine. We still have inflation. And this immigration, we see people being picked up who are not criminals, who don't have a criminal record. And I think because of those things and our message as the Democratic Party of affordability, which is what we are really trying to push in the legislature, and I think it's a big nationwide movement also, is starting to resonate. And so I feel a lot better.
How do you assess the governor's race?
The governor's race is going to be interesting. I did endorse a candidate. I did endorse David Jolly. And I think that we're going to have a real horse race when the time comes. They also have a primary on their side, and that's, candidates get beat up a lot in primaries.
That is optimistic. When you look at the numbers suggest that he's climbing the Mount Everest to politics, or a Jerry Demings or any other Democrat who would emerge, given what's going on with the numbers in this very red state.
I agree. I mean, the state has changed since I've been here. When I was first elected in 2010, Obama had won Florida in 2008, and then Obama won Florida in 2012. So there's no question we have become redder, but I also think that there might be some buyer's remorse, and we might see some things change.
And what about for you? You are term limited, so this is your final year. To talk about where you are, where you're going, what's next?
Sure. So it's been 16 years. Hard to believe. I think I've known you that whole entire time, worked together. Yeah. And I really am proud of what I've accomplished. I have passed a lot of bills. I've been able to bring a lot of appropriations home to Palm Beach County. And now being the minority leader, I feel like I'm going out with a bang. But it is hard to believe that this is the end. I do not have any specific plans. I figure the day after November, 4th, 5th, whatever it is next year, I will sit down and kind of reevaluate where I want to go from there. And as we discussed before we started, I am now a new grandma,
Yeah.
and that is a big part. And maybe I'll
new
take
grandpa, so,
Yep.
and a veteran grandpa.
So, do you support the bill, which would have an enormous impact on your grandchild, that would require learning cursive?
I do.
Brian is so overjoyed to hear that. He saw some of my handwriting, and he's like,
I think it's great. I don't know why. I mean, the fact that our kids won't be able to read letters that were in cursive, to me, that's crazy. I think cursive should still be learned.
political office in your future? It's been in your blood so long.
I
I know you need to take a break,
I
but
know.
come on.
Maybe not. Nothing right now lined up. We'll see.
Be a
We'll
great
see.
grandmother.
Right. And maybe take up golf.
Oh, okay. Let Brian and I know. I don't know if they'd want us on the golf course with my game. Final thoughts for you. We call it Top of Mind Florida for a reason. What haven't we touched on that you'd like to say to our viewers as we go into a very busy, very interesting legislative session and beyond? Final thoughts.
Final thoughts. I'd like to say that the Senate is truly the upper chamber in the Florida legislature, and that we truly work together in a much more bipartisan manner, and that we also often become like the adults in the room and stop some of the bad things that are happening in the legislature. And I'm hopeful that this session will be the same, that you will see us acting as the adults in the room. Our president has been great to work with. He's always open with me. We meet quite often and talk about the issues. So I think people should know that, even though we definitely are the minority party and you hear about such conflicts, I think you should know that at least in the Senate, not as much in the House, but in the Senate, we really are all trying to work together to make things better for Floridians.
We appreciate very much you being with us. Senator Lori Berman, Democrat, Palm Beach County, minority leader this year. Thanks for being with us. And
Thank you so much.
congratulations on the grandbaby.
Thank you, and congratulations to you too.
Back now, Brian. Busy legislative season ahead for the last 2 weeks. We've brought you points of view from the Republican side of the aisle, Toby Overdorf, and now Senator Berman. Thoughts?
I failed to ask the most critical question, though, of this legislative session. Will we be getting rid of the little yellow sticker on the license plates? It's a big issue. It may be the one thing that they can all agree upon. It could
okay.
pass quickly, and we could finally get rid of the little yellow sticker that has
Why's this been troubling you?
It's caused so much turmoil in the state. That's
okay.
all people talk about, the little yellow sticker.
I never knew. I didn't know. Do you have trouble scraping yours off or putting it on?
There are people who think it's
You're
the
one of the ones who
economy.
forget to put it on.
There are people who think it's the economy, homeowners insurance, health care. No. It's the yellow sticker on the
Okay.
license plate. That's what people care about.
Don't know if that was top of mind, Florida, but
Well, maybe bottom of mind.
but it's working its way up the list, buddy.
So what do you think?
All I can think about is yellow decals now. The property tax debate to me is going to be so interesting this year. I mean, the fights, you've got Danny Perez, and you heard Toby Overdorf last week. I mean, with Governor DeSantis, like, if you got a plan, show us. I think you're going to see some real headbutting there. Democrats seem to be willing to come part way. Of course, eventually, Florida voters are going to have to decide. And can you imagine the money that is going to be spent on both sides? Should it come to that, of that eventual campaign, about what this can mean to your pocketbook? I think it's be unlike anything we've ever seen here.
Oh yeah, the money that's going to be, and you have these wild cards now that we never had quite as impactful as they are now. Elon Musk, worth almost $1 trillion, is more than willing to spend a big chunk of that dough to help, and has said in races around the country. Will he get involved in Florida races? And there's been a big influence of billionaires in races all over the country, both on the Republican and Democratic side. But it tends to diminish the voice of the average voter when you're taking a candidate that the super rich like and pouring maybe even hundreds of millions of dollars into those candidates. It's a fundamental change to democracy that we really need to take a harder look at. I don't know what the answer is, but we need to take a harder look at that.
Well, and of course, we've been keeping laser focus with our guest from the Florida Legislature, Mr. Overdorf, or Representative Overdorf and Senator Berman, on Florida legislative policy. But The midterms, we'll talk a lot about that this year. It's going to be very interesting to see where people's heads are at in terms of their pocketbooks, in terms of 2 years into the Trump administration. You and I will have plenty to talk about this year on Top of Mind Florida.
Absolutely. And things change so quickly. I mean, 3 weeks ago, nobody was talking about we might be going into Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with the Trump administration in particular, it's something new almost every day. Where there's a certain exhaustion, I think, setting in for some people. It's still, these kinds of things have impacts on how voters think. And I don't know if they're going to think good or bad about some of the things that Trump has been doing, but it's going to have an impact on statewide races all around the country, including in Florida.
Well, no one I'd rather be sitting with than Brian here on Top of Mind Florida. And won't all be politics, as we are in our new Sunday 9 a.m. time slot for fresh episodes. Of course, you can see them anytime, but we like to think
all week
people
long.
sit down with their cup of coffee just to start out, if you're of a mind to, like you did with our old television broadcast. But the great thing is you can see them anytime, of course, but we drop new ones Sunday at 9 a.m. So pull up with a cup of coffee on a Sunday on your connected TV. If Brian and I can do it, it was pretty simple. And you're not going to get stuff about, if you've been listening for the last few episodes, about 2-Egg Florida or about Brian's concern about decal stickers and the like. We do serious stuff. We have some humor and good laughs too.
And I've already done 2-Egg Florida for 2 episodes. I'm not going to do it again. So if you missed the discussion about the community known as 2-Egg Florida, you're going to have to watch one of the other episodes.
Thanks so much. Final thought to our great audience.
You know, I just want to say thank you so much for listening, watching on whatever podcast format that you like to use. Thank you for subscribing. And if you want to comment, please do on topofmindflorida@gmail.com. Thank you.